Hello and welcome to Let's Be Nerds, episode number 7. I'm your host, Stephen J., and today I am joined by my co-hosts, Gordon and Lizett. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing great, Steve. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Lizett, how about you?
I'm doing good.
Great. So today's episode, we are diving into the wild world of the DC universe, both film and television, as well as comic books. One thing that when we were planning this episode that made it stand out like it'll be an interesting one is the fact that it's between the three of us, we kind of all bring a little something different to the table as far as what we know about.
Well, that's very true. For example, are more focused on the TV shows compared to the movies or comics.
Yeah, and I'm more familiar with the movies going on right now, just because I haven't really had time to get into the comics, and the TV shows have annoyed me what little bit I've watched of them, so.
And I am the OG comic book fan from the 90s and the animated TV shows from the 90s. And yeah, got some questions about the TV shows from the WB and definitely have a lot of questions about some of these movies they're releasing. So I think it'll be an interesting discussion.
Most definitely.
With that being said, Gordon, why don't you explain to us what exactly is going on over at the WB?
Well, that's a loaded question right there. What isn't going on right now at the WB? They have a lot of movies planned to come out, a lot of TV shows that are either continuing or ending, some of which have already ended, some of which have been ruined by more cartoonish versions of themselves. And of course, I'm speaking of Teen Titans, which is probably one of the best places to start in one of the biggest downgrades in my opinion, the DC universe, from what beautiful show we used to have to what kids get to witness nowadays as I don't even know what to call it.
No, wait. Are we talking about the animated Teen Titans, then the Teen Titans Go, or are we talking about the live action Teen Titans?
The Teen Titans Go animated series.
Oh yeah.
Which is the only proper way to say it is dumbed down version of the older animated Teen Titans series.
Now,
Yeah.
I have something to say with this, just because I'm probably gonna get some angry responses when I say this. I did not watch the original Teen Titans series. I still haven't. I didn't really watch too much of Teen Titans Go either, but I did watch Teen Titans Go to the movies?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, I know what you. Yeah.
I
That's an interest.
I liked it. I mean, it was fun. When I went to see it more as just a fun, cute movie, not as I wasn't going to see it as a DC fan looking for anything particular, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
That does. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't good either, in my opinion. I didn't get the full way through it.
I don't know much about it.
Now, one quick note for you, and I don't think they've done anything with this since then, but I believe, I don't know if it was a post-credit scene, something they did at the end of it was the old style animation from the original series. They made it like, shoot, it's been so long since I've watched it. It was something like the old animation style, the old characters were trying to break through the newer animation and say, hey guys, we think we found a way back to you. And everybody was speculating that they were going to bring the old TV show back, but I don't think anything's come of that since then.
From what I
I
understand, they did a movie.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but
I'm honestly not sure. I haven't followed it that deep as much as I like the Teen Titans series. I kind of fell off with the Teen Titans Go all that because it kind of just it turned some really solid and great characters into just garbage, I guess is one of the words that could be used. Like it's just
okay. So
they try
because
to make it too relatable to kids like younger than younger than me, for example, as the youngest one here, to try to relate to them when everything was fine as it was.
let me give you a brief synopsis of what I believe happened, Lizett, since you're a little bit unfamiliar with this series. So
Okay.
the initial Teen Titans animated series, I want to say it ran for a total of 5 seasons, and it premiered like 2002 or 2003, and it focused on Robin, Beast Boy, Raven, Cyborg, and Starfire as the 5 lead characters.
Mm-hmm.
And how they ran the show is each season it was kind of like one of the characters had the story arc. Like, for example, the first season was like Robin and this recurring villain throughout the rest of the show. What did they called him just by Slade because they don't think they used the term Deathstroke, but that was his actual comic book name.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it focused on the power dynamic between the two of them. And then like the second season moved on to another character. Then I believe the third season was Tara, who was in the comic books a very, very prolific character. Um, in the fourth season, they focused on Raven, and she is actually the daughter of a villain named Trigon, who is very much satanic like and devil like. So here's what I think happened. They had a stellar cast. Tara Strong, Scott Menville, Carrie Payton, Greg Sipes, and Hayden Walsh, phenomenal voice actors. They had constant guest stars that were phenomenal. I think the problem was is they were balancing the fun and like the silly episodes with some of the more serious episodes. But when they did the Raven story in season 4, um, it, it's such a powerful story arc from the comic books that it was amazing to watch it come to life in animation. But I think that they kind of, how do I want to say, they sold their fate right there because I think they became less commercial, and they came back for a season 5. They were originally, I believe, going to come back for a season 6, and then that fell through. And I think the reason why, and why you see shows like Teen Titans Go with the cutesy popsy animation style and the fun, silly episodes, is they realized they had a large viewership with this show, but they didn't like essentially the dark themes and the dark nature of actually following the comic books. So they rebranded it in the 6th season. I guess I shouldn't say 6th season. They basically rebooted the show to sell more toys, make it more commercial, make it more kid friendly, and stay away from the traditional elements that original show had that made it so beautiful.
That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense from the studio standpoint, for sure.
The irony of it all, though, is I'm pretty sure their ratings for Teen Titans Go is not what it was for the actual series. I could be wrong, but I don't think they, it's like they had lightning in a bottle and then they tried to redo it, and I don't think it really worked out for them.
And it blew up in their face, kind of.
I could be wrong. I'm not a studio exec. I don't know what they're really making, but I just don't
I'm
think it's as good.
actually to Google that now because now you got me curious.
I do know that they kept, I think it was a contract thing. I'm pretty sure the entire original cast returned for Teen Titans Go. And when you said about like the original animation style breaking through, I think I've seen a poster. I've not seen it personally, but I saw a poster where it was like the 2 versions of Robin and the 2 versions of like Starfire from the different animation styles, and they're like kind of flying towards each other, looking like
Mm-hmm.
they're fighting. So I'm pretty sure they did or are doing a movie where it's both.
Okay.
That would be dope to see.
Yeah, it's definitely like kind of meta in a way if they do.
Actually, what I was trying was actually brought up. What is this?
I found something interesting too. We might be talking about the same thing. In 2019, they released Teen
Yep.
Titans Go versus Teen Titans.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's what I actually just accidentally pulled up when I was looking for ratings. So,
Yeah, okay, I have it up in front of me as well. Yeah, that's the poster I was kind of thinking of. It looks like they're all fighting, right?
yeah, so
Yeah.
that looks like maybe they were building to in that post-credit scene that I'm thinking of.
Yeah, that would make sense.
What I haven't seen this yet. I'll have to
Yeah.
when I get home tonight from work. I'll have to rent this and take a look at it.
On May 27th, 2021, Warner Bros. Announced that Teen Titans Go would be getting a third movie with Teen Titans Go See Space Jam, where they cross over with Space Jam as a way to promote Space Jam: A New Legacy. Are you?
Hell yeah.
Fucking
Oh my God! Stop trying to make Space Jam.
Space Jam's not. We're not talking about Space Jam because that's going to lead to like an hour-long conversation that we do not have time for right now.
I'm going to give you my early summary of what I think one of the major problems with DC Universe is. Do you know in the movie, the cult classic Mean Girls, when somebody, I think it's Regina George, is like, stop saying fetch, stop trying to make fetch happen. Like that, if I could take DC Universe, that is like the problem, is they try to make these weird things, and Warner Brothers in general, I guess I should say, because of Space Jam. But they try to make these weird things happen that nobody wants. Nobody's asking for this.
Like they're trying to copy Marvel.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's exactly what I was getting ready to say.
They're in from what I've seen, at least get from watching the movies and all that. They're trying to copy Marvel and outshine them when if they were to just stick to their own style and their comics kind of like Marvel did, they would be so much bigger than Marvel ever could be, in my opinion,
well,
because the amount of just raw material there is for DC.
and I feel like they're trying to be that stereotypical, like quirky, I'm not like other girls type of persona, because they just don't own the fact that yes, they want to be Marvel. They have to be like, oh no, we're doing our own thing, and like we have blood and gore, and we have this, and we have the F word, and we're different, and we're unique, and we're spicy. It's like you just need to do one thing, stick to it, and do it well. Don't try to like pretend that you're something you're not, that you're like noir and you're artsy and you like I don't, do you get what I'm saying? It's like they can't just admit it. They have to like try to put their own spin on it, and it makes everything very disjointed.
I
Yeah, because
fully agree with you.
yeah, something that I noticed too, especially when like they started really started trying to put movies out, and you could tell that they were trying to compete with Marvel. It seemed like they were trying to compete with them and then surpass them without putting in all the years that has been put into Marvel, because Marvel has been, I don't necessarily want to call it a slow build, but it kind of was. When they first started doing their movies, they did one or two that could have been standalone in case they flopped. Like they weren't counting on the plan was to build this big universe, but if it didn't happen, they could have stopped at any point in those first couple movies and it would have been okay.
Yeah.
And
And
with
they
that,
built, yeah, they built up
sorry.
to a, no, you're okay. They built up to Avengers. They put the time in. They got everybody over a couple years to get to
Mhm.
know these characters. And then DC comes in and you had just a couple, you had Man of Steel, and then you had Batman versus Superman, and then they just dropped Justice League. I
Yeah.
think the first Wonder Woman movie might have come out first. Yes, it did. It
Yeah.
came out first, and then Justice League. But there wasn't enough time for you to get to know most of the characters or like them in the movie setting.
Yeah.
And
So
sorry again.
go on.
That exactly what I wanted to say, and also add that they threw in their Justice League movie Cyborg and the Flash, which we have never they have never done any work with yet. They haven't had their own shows or movies or anything introducing them,
Hmm.
letting us letting us get to know them and their backstory. They just kind of threw it in there, hoping that they're big enough characters that we're going to recognize them. Which, of course, we are. They're two very prominent characters in DC, but they can't just throw them into a movie, especially when there's the CW app putting out TV shows like The Flash, and everyone's so used to seeing that guy as the Flash to just then, without any new backstory, bring in a completely new actor to play the guy in the movie.
Yeah,
And
and oh, go on.
I was gonna say, and that brings me back to my point of it being disjointed. Just pick something and do it well. Like with Marvel, the only TV show that they actually acknowledged was the Agents of Shield. The whole like Netflix, like Daredevil stuff, they licensed that to Netflix to do those shows, and had no intention of bringing the characters in at that particular time to cause what you're describing with like the Flash being on CW, but then Ezra Miller is on your screen playing like
Playing what
I don't
in
even
the
know.
worst,
I'm not
like
even going to finish that sentence.
you don't have to. I'll finish it for you. If I don't know if either of you've seen The Flash, the TV show, or not,
No.
but when I watch The Flash, his running seems organic. It's what I would expect to see if I were to see a speedster run by me and be able to
Yeah.
perceive how fast he's running, compared
Yep.
to Ezra Miller fucking
Oh
throwing his hands behind his head with each
my
step
God.
he takes, his legs going outstretched back like a fucking ballerina. And I don't understand. I don't understand why they thought that looked good. I don't know how that made it past the fucking, sorry for all the swears, made it past the idea board to look good. It doesn't.
You
It
know,
just made me hate him more.
I had never thought to compare that. I have seen a couple episodes of the Flash TV show. Um, Again, I didn't really get into it mostly because I didn't watch it from the beginning. I think I came in the middle of like season one because I walked in on my and I was just like, oh, you know what? Nah, I'll come back. But you're right. I never thought to compare those running styles because the their running sequences are so awkward. They look like somebody's using like I don't know, like an old style action figure and like or like a
Like
puppet thing.
like
It's so
claymation
great.
almost.
Yeah, like it's exaggerated and it just makes you
It
sit there
doesn't need to
and
be.
yeah, you're sitting there watching him going like, what the fuck is he doing? Like what?
It does
It
look
made me
bad.
cringe so hard. And like I'm sure I don't know if you guys have seen the Snyder cut of Justice
Yes,
League.
I have.
I
I
have
have
because
not.
it was honestly so I love the DC universe as much as Marvel. So I was really interested to sit down for 4 hours and waste my time watching that movie, which after watching it, definitely a waste of time, but they definitely cut out some of the best parts, which sucks.
Yeah,
But
well, we're probably going to get into a little bit more in-depth discussion of this in a minute, but I felt like the original or the theatrical, I suppose it should be called, cut of Justice League. I watched that once in theaters and I had to convince my cousins, like I didn't want to sit there and watch it. I was so angry within the first like 20 minutes, if not a shorter period of time that I took with me were sitting there next to me going, we want to leave, Lizett. We want to get up. We don't want to finish watching this. And I was like, I paid for your tickets. You're going to sit your butts in those seats and we're going to watch this train wreck from start to finish because I paid for it. I don't
you,
in,
care how
you guys need to experience some form of childhood trauma to grow into strong adults.
and the worst part is with the Snyder cut of the Justice League, everyone was like, the one scene that kept getting pointed out was Ezra Miller, aka the Flash, breaking through a piece of glass with his finger. Like,
Yeah.
everyone's making such a big deal that that was like the biggest scene in the movie. When, to be honest, I don't think I saw that in the entirety of the Snyder cut. I don't. I think that was just a teaser scene. I don't even think that was
No,
in the Snyder cut.
it was in there.
It was okay. Then I
It
just probably fell
was.
asleep while watching it and didn't realize it. But
So
that's just such a uneventful scene to get hyped up about. He's a speedster.
yeah,
Yeah, he's gonna be able to break fucking glass.
I
Like, he
don't
can throw lightning.
I don't know if they were getting hyped up about it so much because the whole thing was I don't know. Hold on. Let me think about how I want to discuss this. The whole thing was done in slow-mo, obviously, so that you could see everything that was going on. The
Hmm.
cuts of it were odd because you went from I think he was at like a doggy daycare type place or something when he saw a car accident happen outside
That's right.
and he went out to save somebody, but like the cuts kept going back and forth between what he was doing to what in the crash, the one who caused the crash, who I believe, if I'm remembering this correctly, if I'm not, somebody please comment or one of you guys correct me. The driver who caused the crash was eating like a hamburger or something, and one of the sesame seeds off the bun, they were focusing, like some of the cuts were to that sesame seed falling in the truck.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I
and then
think you're right about that.
and then it would cut back to what Flash was doing, and then it would cut back to falling, and it was just like, okay, this is
I
interesting.
I think I know what they wanted to do with that, which, if this might sound stupid, I think they were trying to show us like how fast he was going, so to
Yeah,
speak, like try to give us a scale of the time when that is probably the worst possible way they could have done it. That you're already showing they're already showing us how fast he's going by how fast he can get to the accident and save everyone while the accident's happening. There's
yeah,
no need to focus on any external factor other than the fact that he can run fast. We don't need an explanation. We don't need to see it. We are all very well aware about how fast he can run
yeah.
from the comics and TV shows.
Can I go on a rant on how I think they should have done this whole series? And
Please.
this is coming from a comic book standpoint. Um, I understand that maybe they did not want to do the build up that Marvel did, and maybe they wanted to jump in faster and make themselves quirky, like, oh, we can do it in 2 or 3 films or whatever and have it all established. There was a comic arc in the 90s called The Death of Superman. Obviously, and this is terrible because I'm not really good with the movies. Correct me if I'm wrong. Superman versus Batman, Superman dies. That's where we pick up a Justice League, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Here's the thing. They could have easily covered the death of Superman in the first movie and had it be a flashback sequence of Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman and Lois Lane interacting, because that is the three of the superheroes of the trinity of DC, so to speak. So
Hmm.
have it be the cold opening of the artwork of all of the superheroes carrying Superman's casket, as it was in the 90s in that comic book arc. The pallbearers and everyone's crying and what have you. Have that be like a where do we go from here in the present day? Have it be flashbacks towards Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman's relationships, the potential love interest that happened between Wonder Woman and Batman, uh, Superman and Lois Lane, their engagement, potential marriage, what have you, and have it be a situation where the three of them are friends and are discussing like, wow, this is have it be Superman's vision to have like a Justice League, and have it be like, you know, they could be in the Batcave talking about like, okay, we know this Green Arrow and this Black Canary. They're like a team over in what's the city, Gordon? The Green Arrows.
Star City,
Yeah, be
right?
like we're hearing all this stuff about them. Like maybe we should contact them and see if they want to form like a league. So have that be like in a planning stage. In the present day, Batman and Wonder Woman are sitting there like, what do we do? Well, let's now that we lost the most powerful man on the planet, we need this Justice League now more than ever, and have them go out and assemble the league in like Superman's honor. And while the whole time Batman's behind the scenes figuring out, oh, Superman's not actually dead, he's in the Phantom Zone, because that's like I believe what happened in the comic books. They just had to like bring him back
Uh-huh.
and like build it up that way, and throw in like the villains are going crazy because now that Superman's dead, they think they can just get away with anything. And then you could have Wonder Woman be the powerhouse that she is, going around enlisting and recruiting all these people. Maybe even have already wheelchair bound Barbara Gordon step in as Oracle, doing the computer work of like finding these superheroes. That's
Um,
how this could have been done, and they could have done this in like one or two movies and had the entire DC universe established. And by movie two, they're in the Watchtower satellite in space, taking shift work, watching the world.
Yeah, I think that would have been, well, it definitely would have been much more powerful than what we have going on right now. But it also would have captured our attention, because then it's like, oh, okay, what stories are they going to tell us? Like, these are the stories that we know, but how are they gonna convey some of this to the screen? I personally really like that idea of telling stuff in flashbacks, like stories kind of simultaneously. I think that would have been really interesting, and that would have been different from Marvel, which would have let them shine separately rather than trying to compete.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Hey,
definitely.
send me a contract, Warner Brothers. I can help you. But the thing is, and I kind of understand this because, and I hate to admit this because I love DC so much. There are so many powerful characters that I'm obsessed with, but I also can recognize that I don't know if they could carry their own independent film. And maybe that's where they were coming from, like how they just, threw in Flash and Cyborg and really just kind of half-assed it. Like, let's take example, like a character like Black Canary. She was much better when she's on an ensemble because she stands out that way, but she doesn't have to be the
Center of
dynamic.
attention.
Yeah, like she's not a Black Widow. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So I kind of understand where they were like nervous about that. So there's workarounds where you could give her a subplot with Green Arrow, and like they're apprehensive to join the Justice League because they're doing their own thing. Well, ironically, right after they reject Wonder Woman's offer, a villain comes along that they're like, oh crap, we actually need backup. Like you could, I don't know. It just frustrates me.
Well, I'm. You brought up Superman in the Phantom verse
Phantom,
and all that fun stuff.
Phantom Zone, yes.
Phantom Zone, thank you. And for some reason, it reminded me of a couple pages of a comic I found while scrolling through the interwebs, and it was whenever Superman took up the mantle of Atlas, which I believe is his name, who in I think it's Greek mythology, quite literally like holds the world up.
Yes.
Mhm.
And so in this comic, Superman takes his place to give him the day off to go to for Atlas to go see his daughter's wedding. And throughout the entirety of the comic, we see flashes to um, his city where with the Flash, Wonder Woman, Batman, every other superhero that is the main member of the Justice League at the time, helping take over Superman's roles to protect his city, which they very easily could have used that dynamic in the movie
Yeah,
if you followed that at all.
kind of.
It's
I,
a
I
I
think I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
they could have very easily left Superman dead for a little longer and let the other superheroes pick up the slack. They also could have introduced the Flash and Cyborg that way as to not make it seem forced, but almost as if it's necessary for them to come out and have their own movie, even if it's a joint movie together.
Mhm.
Is kind of what I was kind of thinking there.
Yeah.
It would have given them the opportunity to introduce a couple characters to make the Justice League movie just that much better with more background to the characters they had in it.
Yeah. I'm gonna suggest. Sorry, I don't mean. I'm kind of distracted because I have one more plot point that I think could have been done. Excuse me, that could have been done for these movies that would have totally set them apart from Marvel. And I don't mean to sidebar you on this one, Gordon, but I had to do a quick fact check. So in 2002, wait, let me double check that. 2005, this really famous writer artist Alex Ross did this limited series run called Justice. And when I say it's like one of my favorite runs of a comic book, I am not exaggerating. Um, I was up at the comic store every Saturday on the nose to try to get these books. Um, so in this series, what happens is, so if you remember the really old Super Friends show, they
Yeah.
did they did a few seasons where it was them versus the Legion of Doom, which was all the villains. Well, in Justice, and correct me in the comments if I get any of this wrong, because it's been a while since I've read it. Um, so the main players of the Legion of Doom serve as like the arch nemesis of the Justice League members, and the villains begin to start having a collective recurring dream about the world ending due to a nuclear fallout or some sort of global devastation that it actually brings the world to an end. And the comic book opens and you see like all the heroes dying, and you're like, what the hell's going on? But like you realize later on that you're witnessing the dream that these guys are all, the villains are all sharing. Well, for once, instead of all coming together just to beat the Justice League for the sake of beating them, they actually take a different standpoint, and they're like, as much as they're villains, they don't want the world to end or to be destroyed. And then it becomes a discussion where like the Justice League is overconfident, overpowered, whatever you want to call it. And so the villains begin to shift the narrative, like Poison Ivy and I'm trying to think, like Poison Ivy and I think Toyman and a few other villains set out, and they like they solve a lot of like the world's problems using their abilities. And like I believe there's a scene where like Toyman is like building medical equipment in Africa for like children that were like devastated and badly injured. And so they shift the narrative on themselves where they're no longer looked at as these like horrible people. And then public perception of the Justice League changes to a negative one, because now the villains are like the ones that are actually using their powers in a more, not just a protective role, they're actually making a difference. And the comic just kind of goes on from there. It's an interesting take on this the villain versus hero dichotomy. And I don't want to spoil like, and I don't really remember all the details, but it's definitely a series worth checking out. And if DC really wanted to be unique, taking something like that and having that be how you introduce your universe would be totally something different.
It
It's just
Yeah.
definitely would be,
anyway. I'll get off my
You
rants now. Sorry.
especially a way to introduce villains, which so far, to the best of my knowledge, has been no other than introducing them through the heroes, no way of introducing the villains on their own
Hmm.
and showing just how powerful most of the villains are
Hmm.
and how much the heroes have to like level up, so to speak, in some cases to battle said villains.
Hmm. And it would be an interesting experience for the audience, because if I remember how it plays out, I believe Brainiac or Gorilla Grodd was like implanting, or maybe there was another villain in their ranks, I believe, that was implanting this dream into all their heads and was actually manipulating them. And like that villain is truly like a villain. And I believe they all kind of come together in the end to take that one down, like the heroes and the villains. I could be wrong about that, but I just think that like that's a storytelling moment that once if you were to do something like that, then the sky's the limit as far as the spin-offs and the different people like I don't know. I just think that DC consistently drops the ball and it frustrates me and they need to just give me a contract to write them a script.
All
I
three of us to
think,
write them.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think part of the problem though is those are all really good stories. Like we would all love to hear a new type of story, but at the end of the day, they're not really telling stories. They're about making money.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't really it's horrible because they have so many good stories that can teach things or just like they're impactful and they don't want them because they don't see a clear way to monetize them, not realizing that if you tell good stories and it's things that people are really unique that really moved me, you're going to sell more merchandise because of that. Because
Mm-hmm.
people are like, oh, we want to wear the t-shirts, we want the posters up on our walls, we want collectibles, we want this, we want that. Versus, well, this is a safe formula. Look at how much money Marvel's making by making their kind of good time serious movies. So we're going to go with that formula because it's working for them and it's making them tons of money, even
Mm-hmm.
though that's not really what DC stories are originally.
No.
Yeah, no, I personally just want to see Disney envelop the DC universe so that we can just put, I believe it's what, John Favreau as the director for all future DC movies and TV shows, so that we actually get decent movies and TV shows because he's a god among men when it comes to writing, casting, writing scripts and all that fun stuff. Because he's single-handedly one of the most, I believe, single-handedly responsible for most of the Marvel universe being the way it is.
Are you talking about John Favreau?
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay. I,
I couldn't, I
I,
couldn't, I don't, I can't pronounce his name, and I'm not going to attempt to do it. All I know is that I'm pretty sure he is single-handedly responsible for the Marvel universe being the way it is, and they need someone like that for DC, which is why Disney just needs to put out $1 trillion and buy DC.
see, I
It's
will
not like
agree.
they don't have that much money.
I will agree that I definitely think the changing in directors and producers and stuff that DC has faced has definitely been an issue. But I don't know if I really want Disney to do that in a sense because to me, Marvel has always, and I don't want to say, and when it comes to the comic books, I've always been more drawn to DC because for a lot of the time, the Marvel storylines are more, I want to say outlandish and maybe childish. I don't know if that's the right word, but they're more cartoony. They're more child friendly. Whereas the DC universe has gotten into some of like the darker
I think I
storylines.
I think I know what you're trying to say because like I'm not familiar enough with the comics to read on that, but I think I get, at least from working at the bookstore and like checking out the covers and kind of the synopsis on the back of a lot of the graphic novels. Um, the Marvel books were always a little bit more, not necessarily lighthearted because they did also touch on some dark subject matter, but more often than not, they were kind of kid friendly, like you said. Whereas
Mhm.
DC, there would be ones that I would look at and be like, "Oh wow, we're selling this now." Okay.
Have you read or seen the movie The Killing Joke?
Yeah, when he how
Because
Barbara Gordon ended up in a wheelchair. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, The Killing Joke is kind of that and The Red Hood. Those two movies, one after another, or pretty much one and the same, I should say, are oh, they get pretty dark. I
Yeah, they're.
mean,
I haven't seen the, but I have seen The Killing Joke, and it gets pretty brutal in some parts. Which
that's an
is,
understatement.
yeah, uh, it's
Joker
interesting.
outright beats, I believe it, just outright beats Robin to death and then blows him up. Well,
Oh,
beats him near to death and then blows him up in a warehouse right before Batman can get there to save him. And then Ra's al Ghul comes along and wanting to repay a favor he owes the Batman, puts him or puts Robin in the Lazarus pit, which brings him back to life. But he has this very he has a thirst for blood. I forget the proper name for it, and then he
is
just goes on a killing
uh,
spree.
is that when Jason Todd is Robin, or the Robin at that point?
I can't remember. That's why I have been avoiding saying the name. I
Okay.
think it is Jason Todd though.
In The Killing Joke?
Yeah, is it not? He
No,
not
no,
the
not
Robin?
Oh, I'm sorry.
in Red Hood, right? Is the one you're talking about?
It should be the same Robin.
Red Hood, yeah,
Okay.
that was Jason Todd.
Yeah, Jason
Okay.
Todd got the thirst. I can't remember the proper name for it. What you get out of the Lazarus pit when you're revived from the dead. It's some. It's like bloodlust. That's the word, bloodlust.
Hmm.
And he is focusing all of his rage on the villains in Gotham because Batman refused to kill the Joker after catching him when he just killed Jason, which, if I'm correct, was one of the closest of Batman's sons, so to speak. I'm pretty sure he was closest with Jason compared to any of the other ones.
Well,
That or Damien.
him and Dick Grayson had a big falling out right before Jason came on, and it's it's not so much that I don't think he was necessarily Batman's favorite, but he was like, I think Batman always subconsciously knew that Jason Todd was too risky and too bullheaded and too brash, that like he always like kind of overprotected him because he knew something bad was going to happen, or like he was going to be,
That potential to
yeah.
go a little bit darker
Snap.
than what he wanted. Yeah.
Yeah. And did you know that that actually was voted on by the fans of the comic books when that was actually like back in the day when that was running in the series? They had people like, I don't know how, but like, I guess by mail, because obviously like you couldn't, wasn't the internet at the time, but like they actually asked the audience whether Jason should live or die, and the audience voted for him to die.
Which is kind of
Wow.
fucked up.
Yeah.
But honestly, I'm happy they did that because now we have this amazing uh cart or we had this amazing TV show, or I should say movie and comic book series
Yeah.
that has stemmed from that choice, which
Have
I
you
like
guys,
it.
have you either of you ever heard of the Identity Crisis storyline from the Justice League?
I do not believe I have.
It is,
I feel like I've heard a little bit about it, but it's more I'm married to somebody who loves the DC universe. Like Batman is both my husband and my father-in-law is one of their favorite characters, so I get told about it all the time.
well, it's a very dark storyline, and I would love to tell you about it. But before we do that, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to hear a word from our sponsor, and we will be right back. Hey there, guys and gals. I hope you are enjoying this episode of the Speak Easily podcast. I know I had a lot of fun recording it. Speaking of, have you ever thought about making your own podcast? It's always been something I wanted to do, but I kept putting it off because I could never find the right platform to host it. That is, until I discovered Anchor. Anchor is an all-in-one recording, editing, and hosting app that makes the process simple. And the best part is it's totally free. And I mean genuinely free. And if you're someone like me who has a love-hate relationship with editing audio, let me tell you this, I was blown away by how user-friendly the in-app editing tool actually is. My favorite part, I must admit, is the distribution. Normally, with new podcasts, you have to submit your show to various platforms individually, which can be time consuming and very frustrating. But with Anchor, they do the legwork for you. They'll submit it to Spotify, Apple, Castbox, Google, and several others with just the click of a button. Plus, unlike other platforms, there is no minimum requirement for listeners, so you can monetize your podcast and start earning right away. So, download the free Anchor app available in the App Store or on the Google Play Store, or do what I did and head over to anchor.fm to get started today. Thank you, Anchor, for sponsoring this podcast. I guess this means the next round's on you. I'll drink to that. So, the Identity Crisis series, another one that really just dove into a dark area of storytelling related to superheroes that I was definitely not expecting. It was released in 2004, I believe summer of 2004. And for people that don't follow comic books, this is like an overall theme that it seems like they always try to do even to this day, is they run like through the fall, winter with their normal storylines, and then every couple of years they'll do these crises. And it's ironic because Marvel and DC both like use this term. Like there's the multiverse crisis and there's the identity crisis and infinite crisis
on Infinite Earth.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's like,
Probably my favorite one.
and what they do is it's like usually a summer based event because kids are like out of school, they're more able to, hit the local comic store up. It's been like this way as long as I can remember, and probably even before that. So anyway, I was a kid, and this Identity Crisis was coming out, and all year they're building up to it, and it finally drops. And I'll be quite honest, I at the time was pretty young. I did not really know what I was getting into, but essentially, it's revealed in this storyline that a character by the name of Elongated Man, I know, that sounds stupid.
I hate him and love him at the same time.
Think of Dollar Store Mr. Fantastic. That's basically what it is. So he's on a watch, and there's some villain that he takes down or whatever. But while this is going on, and while he's on duty, his wife Sue Dibney is murdered in their apartment. Like as you're reading the panels, it's like happening at the same time. And through that, it comes out that like obviously the other heroes are protective of Elongated Man, and they loved Sue. She kind of was like a Lois Lane, where she was very active at like the JLA headquarters and was very involved, kind of like an unofficial member with no powers. And the higher ranks of the Justice League, like the Green Arrows and the Flash and different characters like Hawkman that are kind of, your B tier, they reveal that their prime suspect in the murder of Sue Dibney is Dr. Light. And Gordon, you'll remember Dr. Light from the Teen Titans show. He was obviously his powers are just like shooting light beams, and he was kind of portrayed as like a shitty villain, like not very good, kind of haphazard, C-level, easily taken down bad guy. Well, yeah, the reason why he's portrayed that way in comic books and TV shows is because at one point, when he was before, I have to like mind my words because I don't even know if I can use this word on this show, so I may have to come back in and bleep this out. But Dr. Light at one point was not a cartoonish villain. He was a monster, and he was a psychopath. And he, from what I can remember, I believe he broke into the JLA headquarters while Sue Dibney was there by herself. The team was out. He beat her and her. And the Justice League basically came into this situation and saw it, and they took a vote. And after they apprehended him and he was mad, they voted to allow Zatanna. She's a sorceress, Justice League member, very powerful. She's kind of like the Scarlet Witch of the DC universe. and they voted to allow her to use her powers to mind wipe Dr. Light and to
Oh, I
alter his
remember this episode now, or
and to al-
series.
and to alter his personality to make him like this bumbling buffoon. And needless to say, in this comic book series, Dr. Light has regained his memories. And then this opens up this whole discussion of how the Justice League has been mind wiping and altering for years. At one point, they revealed that supervillains had taken over, like mind control wise, some of the members and revealed their secret identities. So when the Justice League, figured out how to beat them and stop them, they had Zatanna do the same thing where she mind wiped them and made them forget everything. So then it dives into this whole, moral thing of these heroes are out here just doing this randomly, and basically if they determine that they want to do it, they can do it. And should they have that ability to use their powers in that way, essentially, is the whole discussion. And that's like Marvel could never, like, that's not a storyline you're going to find in Avengers. I'm sorry.
Well, you almost find something like that when you watch the Shield TV show. It gets a bit darker in the Shield TV show, in my opinion, for Marvel wise.
Yeah.
Not as dark as DC has ever gotten. There's Marvel will never match the artistry of DC in that matter, but they definitely touch on it in Marvel. But that's probably the only Marvel show that I can think of that has any graphic anything
Mm-hmm.
in it that's like noteworthy.
And, you look at Marvel's success with Deadpool, all DC had to do was basically make Deadpool, not Deadpool style, I mean, Deadpool rated as far as like the R rating or whatever. Have that be their brand. Have Justice League be the dark, raunchy, like superhero grit, villain grit type of stuff, and they would have been doing something totally different. And I think they would have definitely got a huge following.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And sounds like that with this awkward science, it sounds like that's the end of that conversation. Um,
You never,
and
never point out the silence, Gordon. You're
always
just
point out the silence because that's the way
no.
I am. And so I'm gonna segue us to happy fun times over in Aquaman land.
Oh
Um,
no, no, don't get
yep,
me started
yep,
over
no,
here.
oh no, we're starting this to segue into other things later, and um, there's only one reason why I want to bring up Aquaman. It's to say one sentence that needs to be said. Fuck Amber Heard, and that's
I
all that
was
needs to be said about the Marvel series or the
I
series.
knew that was the sentence. I almost said it with you just to prove that I knew where you were going with that.
Because I don't like I don't know if you guys have followed up on this as much as I have, because I am a very big Johnny Depp fan. I love him to death, and I wish I could meet him. But I've been following this story kind of closely. And with everything coming out in favor of Johnny now, or I should say Johnny Depp, I don't know him personally, can't just call him Johnny. Um, with everything coming out in his favor, Warner Brothers has already said that they are not going to bow to fan pressure to remove Amber Heard
As
from
Mira.
Aquaman 2 as Mira, and that they're not even and there's rumors that they're going to limit her screen time, and that they've said that they will not bow to fan pressure, which is all fine and dandy. I just can't wait to see the very first DC movie to pull negative revenue when it hits box office.
Yeah.
Because everyone who's a fan of Johnny Depp or has respect for people who went through what he went through are not going to go see this movie. There are every single community I'm a part of that is thousands of people large have already claimed that they are not going to go watch this movie. They have no plans of supporting them for keeping Amber Heard in the show, which pains me that they are, and it pains me that they're not even giving Johnny Depp any of his. I don't believe they're giving any of his roles back, i.e., in Harry Potter as Grindelwald, which pisses me the fuck off. But that's not now. That's Harry Potter episode later down the road.
But my thing is this isn't even, and I mean, I've been following it somewhat, no, I don't think quite as closely as you have, maybe, Gordon, but this shouldn't just be about being a fan of Johnny Depp. Should be more so a discussion of anybody who doesn't support psychological and physical domestic abuse.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, I've heard the
exactly.
tapes. Like, she's a crazy bitch, and like, thank God he was smart enough to record some of this stuff. And again, it goes deeper than that, because by her doing this and having all these false accusations, that's only problematic for actual victims, and he is the victim. Like,
So
It's such a rabbit hole.
I just did a real quick Google search because I wanted some numbers on this. My sister and I signed one of the petitions. I think there might be multiple ones floating around to have her
Hundreds.
removed. The one on change.org right now, the one that I pulled up, has over 1,100,000 signatures on it.
Can you just drop a link in the Discord so I can sign it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And now, subsequently, you can go look at giving Johnny Depp all of his roles back, and there's just like so many people who wish he like. I know people that aren't even going to go and watch the new Fantastic Beasts movies because they took out Johnny Depp.
I'm cool with that.
Yeah, I am too. I definitely will not be doing it.
I mean, it's upsetting, but
Yeah.
wow. So DC really just doesn't give a shit, is what it looks like.
Or at least
Exactly.
brothers, yeah.
Yeah.
Warner Brother does not give a single fuck.
Ugh. I totally forgot about that connection until you said that. And I mean, I knew about the case, but I totally forgot about her playing Mira because she was forgettable in the part.
Well, and that's something I was about to say. If we just remove the controversy, but just to remove the controversy for conversation's sake for a second, she's a shit actress on top of it. She sucked in that role.
Do you know who they should? Do you know who they should get? Because Mira was, I believe, in the comic books a little bit older than Aquaman and a little bit more like regal and powerful. They need to get Connie Britton from season 1 of American Horror Story, that beautiful redhead. Get her in there and have her do the part. I'm telling you, it'd be 10 times better.
I'm not familiar with her, but I have seen a fan edit where someone took Amelia Clarke.
Yes, that's her name. Yes.
Oh, from Lord of the Rings. Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Yes.
And like, they posted it on Facebook like it was happening, and I got so freaking excited because everybody in the comments is going, "Oh my God, the Cal and Khaleesi are going to be back together," and blah blah blah. And then I clicked on it and I read it, and I was like, "Fuck, it's a fan edit." Like, I got excited. I'm like, I'm going to get to go and actually watch Aquaman 2. No.
I fuck that.
Yeah. So I mean, like, they have options. They have people, and Amelia Clarke is a much better actress. They have better chemistry together, in my opinion. But at the same time, if they didn't want Amelia Clarke, or if she didn't want the role, there are, like you said, who could take up that mantle and would do it better. Just removing the controversy from it, just looking at it from an acting standpoint, would do it so much better. And then they would actually get to make some money off their movie.
And they need that actress to be a strong, dynamic person, because there's so many storylines where Atlantis will get it is Atlantis, right?
Yes, I think so.
Where Aquaman will be with the Justice League, Aqualad will be with the Teen Titans, Aquagirl will be probably with Titans West or East or whatever, and Mira is the one down there holding off any attack and defending the kingdom. So like, they need somebody that's memorable and a dynamic actress, not an abuser. Alleged abuser.
I think it's
Is it still alleged?
I don't know.
I don't think it's alleged anymore. I'm pretty sure it's confirmed because Johnny Depp has been winning his last couple of court cases in his favor. So I'm pretty sure if it's alleged, it's very loosely and more leaning towards
proven.
proven, yes.
Just wanted to cover our ass, but yeah.
Yeah. My husband and I were actually talking about this yesterday, I think it was yesterday or the day before, and just about how this is still going on, how, like you said, Warner Bros. Is keeping her on, but they've taken him off movies, even though the story's flipped now. No, this is the decision we made. Whereas,
If it was the other way around.
well, if it was the other way around, but also just about any other studio probably would have jumped on whatever, like, yes, bow to fans are who pay your bills.
Mm-hmm.
So you to some degree you bow to fan pressure.
Absolutely.
You don't
People need to know they're being heard. If they're going to vote with their wallet, if they don't, you know what I mean?
Like the Sonic movie, for example.
Oh,
People
yeah.
voiced their opinions on how shitty the character design was, and what did they do? They delayed the movie and went back and designed the entire character.
Yeah.
Which honestly was awesome. Fans finally felt that a movie production company was listening to them and taking their opinion into account, which is a great feeling.
Yeah. And let's be honest, like after the pandemic, like these studios are losing money left and right. Like now's not a time to dig your heels in and
I can say one thing on Johnny Depp's behalf, since we're still on this topic, is
are you his spokesman?
Yeah, I am. Even though he got fired from the Fantastic Beasts set, his contract had him signed for the movie, and because the way he sets up his contracts, it's
he still got
you
paid,
pay
didn't
me
he?
all up front, no matter how
Oh,
much of this movie I do. So they had to
Yeah.
pay him for the full movie, even though they fired him.
good for him.
So he got all the money for that movie, and I'm pretty sure any other movie he planned on doing and had signed contracts for, he got paid for because the way his contracts were.
That's
Where he
awesome.
gets paid up front and then
Yeah.
does the movie,
I do remember reading something about that as well.
which is awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so refocusing on DC, Gordon, what the F is going on with the WB's costume design though? Because some of them look really bad.
Should we bring up Harley Quinn
Ugh.
in Suicide Squad and how she looked like the main character out of Chainsaw Lollipop, the video game that I'm sure no one but me knows about because I'm weird?
Well, can confirm that, yes, but so you're saying they ripped off her costume design?
I think it's not a rip-off because in the video game she was wearing a skirt and all that, but the color scheme's the same, but it's a very common color scheme. All I'm saying that they made her very
Holy
slutty and
crap.
disgusting.
She
You
does
just
look
look it
like
up?
that character. Yes, I did.
Drop it in the Discord so I can put it up for people that are
Yeah.
watching.
I got you.
Ugh. Yeah, let's dive into this character real quick because this is something that's like very dear to me.
Are you able? Sorry, I was
go
asking her if she was able to upload the picture because she was having issues with Discord.
It's letting me put the picture up. The bots don't like me today.
There you go, Steve. That's the picture right there.
Oh, for God's sake, it's literally identical.
Exactly, except for the skirt, it's identical and it's horrible. And
Are
that
these
video
leg
game is
warmers?
actually, yes.
Is she wearing is this Debbie Gibson from the 80s? What the fuck is going
If
on?
you can, if you have a way of playing this video game, I recommend anyone go and play Chainsaw Lollipop or watch, I believe it's Jacksepticeye play it, because it's in a hilarious series of battling zombies as this character.
Okay. Might be worth checking out.
That's off topic. Let's get back to Harley Quinn.
Okay. Again, I feel like this has just been me ranting for 45 minutes, and I apologize. So the origin of Harley Quinn was actually the Batman animated series from the early 90s. Paul Dini and Bruce Timm designed this character as a one-off, one-episode appearance. The origin of Harley Quinn actually came from the soap opera Days of Our Lives. Harley Quinn was a rollerblading jester type character in a dream sequence, and she was played by a comedian and actress, Arlene Sorkin. Dini was friends with Arlene, and so he based the character like around her personality and around her looks. Like when she came into the studio to voice the part, she basically spoke in her normal Brooklyn accent, and it was originally designed that she was just going to be in one episode. Well, because of popularity in the TV show, she was brought back for more, and they were the production team at the time was having an issue because the debate was giving the Joker a love interest kind of humanizes him, and like, do we really want to go that route, or do we want to keep him as like the crazy bad guy? It was like a whole debate, but Harley Quinn's commercial popularity actually kind of made them make that decision, and that's when they explored the power dynamic and the domestic. Ironically, the domestic abuse. We're circling back to that subject that she was experiencing from the Joker, and that saw her kind of strike out on her own in the TV show, befriending Poison Ivy and kind of taking a anti-hero role similar to Catwoman. At one point, Harlequin, Catwoman, and Poison Ivy had their own comic book series called the Gotham Sirens, where they were villains, but they did some good. This character is like a legacy in the comic books because it's the first character that I can think of that was taken from the TV show of its that originated in the TV show, transitioned to comic books, and landed. And I want to say it was quite a few years before, like, she appeared in this TV show, and then she wasn't. That was like 1992 that she was introduced, and she didn't make it to the comic books till 1999. And so, needless to say, what frustrates me about this is the character is iconic, and they took it to the point with these films where they saw the commercial success that she had in the 90s that was organic, and they tried to make it a cash cow, and they altered her. They played off of her personality, and they played off of her sexuality, and it's frustrating in a sense because that's never really like who she was. She was, you almost sympathized with her for the, like, because she was originally, the Joker's therapist in Arkham Asylum, and she fell in love with him, and that's a whole like Stockholm syndrome type of situation. And the story is incredibly powerful. And now you see this representation of her that like almost makes light of the psychological abuse and the domestic abuse, and then they try to push her on you in such a way. For 3 Halloweens, every basic white girl in anywhere has been dressing up in this slutty costume and totally missing the whole point of the character. And it's frustrating, it's exhausting, and I don't like it.
And I'm sure we can all agree that the red and black costume design was a much, in my opinion, my favorite costume for Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
Like, they nailed it, and they didn't have to change it.
And there's symbolism in that because, like, the jester is often an archetype of like the fool and the one that's just only around for entertainment and then is disposable. And that was kind of what, although she was madly in love with the Joker, he would constantly, if things were going bad, he'd make his escape and leave her behind. It was a love lost situation where he never cared about her the way she cared about him. And that power dynamic and watching her and reading her overcome that and kind of come to that realization and come into her own is an incredible story to tell. And they just missed the mark with the comic books. Like I don't know how they don't capture the gravitas of the situation. They just throw her in skimpy clothes and kind of make fun of mental health and make her like this quirky, I'm going to bash her skull in. And like, it just,
Yeah,
I don't know.
Coming from someone who was vaguely familiar with her backstory and the character development, but didn't know about it that much, you're making me want to go do a lot more research into the original characterization of her, because I like her character in the movies, but it is very just kind of goofy, I like Margot Robbie. I think that's how you say her name. Like I enjoy her as an actress. I enjoy her in the part, but you sitting here telling me that there's so much more depth to this character is making me a lot more interested in her history in the. That's probably something I'll be doing. Not I'll be doing my work,
Of course.
but
None of us work at work.
It's just, and it's one of those things where, and I agree. Like when I first saw her in the first Suicide Squad, it wasn't as I wasn't as enraged as I feel about it now. But like going back and like I never made it through Birds of Prey, because Birds of Prey, again, them using that title for what they developed is absolutely reprehensible, because the origin of Birds of Prey, we talked about the Killing Joke. Barbara Gordon gets shot by the Joker, put in a wheelchair. She feels powerless. Her whole world has crumbled. She puts her mind and her intelligence into becoming the Oracle and basically being the behind the scenes superhero that had all the information, all the details. And then she assembles this powerful female squad of the Huntress and Black Canary, and then several other, like Vixen was in it for a while, and like other females have rotated in and out. And that's Barbara Gordon's story. That's her legacy in the time period where she was one of the first disabled superheroes. That's her. That's not Harley Quinn.
Oh.
And so when I saw that, and trust me, when they announced the film, I'm thinking this is going to be the redemption, or like what I anticipated them doing is coming into the film, having Barbara Gordon already wheelchair bound and having the Birds of Prey established, having Harley Quinn come in contact with them, and then doing the character development of, wow, the Joker treats me like crap. Here's a badass squad of females that are doing some good. And, maybe she doesn't totally become a hero, plays up that anti-villain or anti-hero aspect and like works alongside them. But no, they just took the name and shit all over it and forced more Margot Robbie commercial bullshit down our throat. And it's like they pretend to be about female empowerment without actually being about female empowerment.
Yeah. That changes my viewpoint of it, because I did not know that about the origin of Birds of Prey. I went into that again because DC is not 100 when it comes to the comics and the origin stories. I went into it as just, let's see what kind of hot mess is going to be today. And Drew and I, he and I both really enjoyed it. It was really, this is improving on the quality of movies we've been getting out of DC recently, but knowing that they removed that core character changes my viewpoint on it a bit, because that you're removing not only a core character in a very powerful story from the origin of that team, you're removing some representation, which is something that I know a lot of studios claiming to work on, being more inclusive in their representation of all of the different groups of disabled or
underrepresented people.
Yes, that's the term I was looking for. Thank you. And that's something that, not to switch so abruptly, I'm sorry for doing this, but this is something that I did want to mention, as that representation part of it. So it's not something that I ever really considered how impactful it could be until I watched the movie. So for me personally, like, I had watched the Marvel movies, I had seen female characters on screen, superheroes, and that's all well and good. When it came time, first Wonder Woman movie, aside from the fact that she's my favorite superhero, that's who my mom raised me and my sister watching the Linda Carter TV show. And we were very much like, she had us just loving Wonder Woman from the time that we were little, and it gives me that special. That's something that I shared with my mom. Not only that, but going in, watching that first that was the first female superhero movie where I was able to look at that character and be like, oh my God, I can see myself to some degree represented on screen, because it wasn't just a purely white actress. Gal Gadot is Israeli, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, not the same as me, but having that little bit more color in the skin tone,
Mm-hmm.
it was impactful. Like, there were points in that movie where I was almost moved to tears. Now, I'm not saying that that movie does not have its problems, because I have been accused of swearing that it's the best movie ever and ignoring any issues that it might have. But for me personally, that movie has a lot of meaning, a lot of different layers of meaning. And that was the first time I began to understand why representation in movies and TV shows is truly that important.
Mm-hmm.
It had never been something that I had considered before then. So
It's funny because I mean, it wasn't superhero related, but I remember watching the show and feeling that feeling of finally having on a character on the screen that like looked or sounded or whatever. And it was like, oh, so this is what everybody means when they talk about having that character, that it resonates with you and it's like you feel represented on a screen. It's a
yeah.
powerful feeling.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so switching back to Birds of Prey a little bit, the fact that they took that opportunity away from a group of people,
Yeah.
to see some representation of themselves on screen is a really big deal.
How
And
many
like,
how many little wheelchair bound girls out there don't know that Barbara Gordon for most of the 90s and early 2000s was holding the DC universe together by a computer screen? You know what I mean? Like,
exactly, like how key she was to all of the heroes that you're used to seeing. Like, she was, from what I'm understanding of you saying, she was basically their backbone
mm-hmm.
behind the scenes, but still she was, like you said, she was what was holding it together. And that is a representation that should not go unshown.
I agree completely. And
So do I.
it's not a forced representation. It happened organically in the comic books. So
Yeah.
right now we're in this culture where we talked about this in a previous episode. They're forcing all of this faux representation and they're ignoring. I think this goes back to my Storm rant. They're 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 pushing, they're changing characters and they're pushing different agendas, but they're ignoring actual source material that if they just included, they would accomplish their mission and fans would be happy because they're getting fan service. And it's just frustrating. It's
Yeah.
It will always be frustrating.
until
Film companies never do the right thing.
until they let us write the next few movies, we're gonna we're
We'll
not
fix
gonna be happy.
we could fix it all. Like, give 3 movies. I think we could turn this around.
Right? That's all I need.
At least get it started.
All right. Well, does anybody else have anything that we want to touch on? Because I know we're going a little bit long here, and I just want to wrap up. But before we go, anything we need to touch on that we missed?
No.
I think yeah, I have a fun fact for anyone who doesn't know it, just because I need to at least have one in every episode.
Mm-hmm.
There's a character that is owned by both Marvel and DC named Access, and his sole purpose is to keep the universe separate.
What?
Um, you know what the Source Wall is, right?
Isn't that the wall that divides the two worlds?
Yes.
Okay.
Access's job is to make sure no one crosses that wall on either side. So he is owned by both Marvel and DC to be used as necessary to keep anyone who ventures that far away, so to speak.
I did
Or
not know
from,
that.
like, say they somehow make a portal in the Marvel universe to go to the DC universe, Access would show up and tell them to stop their shit or suffer his wrath, so to speak.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know about that.
Oh, that's yeah. I have a photo of him. I'm gonna drop it into the Discord so we can use it in the video. That is That's pretty cool. Hmm.
Yeah, I did not many people know about that. I have a lot of fun facts about the superheroes, but that can be for a future episode as it's getting to that time to
Yeah.
wrap up.
Well, I'd be curious to just we should maybe like see a little bit more about Axis and see like I would truly like to do a DC versus Marvel universe where we like put like characters versus characters and see who would win in a fight, and maybe that would be a good time to kind of touch on like Axis and how he's appeared um, throughout the different series.
Yeah.
Well, I agree. It'd also be a good time just to nonchalantly just talk about weird things we know about the characters in either universe.
Yeah.
Just have a more casual kind of conversation.
All right. Well, with that being said, folks, I want to thank you both for being here for another great episode. For those of you listening, thank you for being here. Please leave us a like, leave us a comment, leave us a rate and a review. Anything we can receive will benefit the show and our development going forward. We are trying to build a community here. Please consider joining our Discord server. It'll be linked down below. It's a good place for us to all get together and discuss different topics and different episodes. If you'd like to support the show, we also have a Patreon set up with some behind the scenes exclusive content for you to view. And again, we thank Anchor for making this episode possible. Without them, we could not do this. And with that being said, let's be nerds. We'll be back next week for another episode, and we want to thank you again, and we'll see you then. Let's Be Nerds is hosted and executive produced by Gordon Bryant and me, Stephen J. McLean. Today's co-host was Lizett Ayala. You can find her on Instagram at xshadowsongx. Let's Be Nerds is a production of Speak Easily Productions. Our social media manager is Kylie Gregg. Our theme song was composed by Robert Van Jacobs. You can follow him on Instagram at Bobby_Spector. To keep up with the latest about the show, follow us on Twitter at Let's the Letter B Nerds, or join our Discord server, which will be linked in the description box below. Thank you to Anchor for sponsoring our show, and thank you for listening.